What's she mumble?
We're good to go.
Okay.
That was fast.
Why is she yelling at me?
First Sunday back in 4 weeks
Yeah.
after a hiatus from preaching, which a lot of people might think is a vacation for you. But that's actually, just because you're not preaching, it doesn't actually mean you're on vacation, does it?
Right. A lot of my work is typically prep for sermons or thinking about sermons or whatever. But if I don't have to do it, it does free up my week. A little less stressful, but still work nonetheless.
Yeah, there's still stuff to do
Stuff to
besides.
do.
Yeah. You have more than just 2 hours on a Sunday.
That's
that
right.
You're working, right? Well, great message.
Thank you.
And potentially an awkward subject
Yeah.
to deal with, circumcision.
Sure.
And how it mattered to God a lot. That played a huge part in your message. And I'm really glad that it doesn't matter now.
I know. I think Josh said something at the end of the service. He's like, so thankful that Jesus took our marks for us.
Yes.
That we don't have to.
And you told us about how God used that as a mark to show that His people were chosen by Him.
Yes.
Why couldn't He have used something else?
An earring, a nose ring. I mean, you name it, a number of things. Why just the males? And I've never really studied circumcision out enough to know, but yeah, it was, there's some, we could go 100 ways with this, but there is something that was significant to him in that regard.
Yeah. And that was the question I kept having was, why is circumcision the mark of all things?
Well, for me, it's like, why flint knives? Why knives fashioned out of stone?
Yeah.
I mean, they were certainly in the Bronze Age at this point.
Yes.
They could fashion metal knives.
Wow.
But no. God says, hey, Joshua, get rocks. Make them real sharp.
So interesting. And what an interesting thing, too, to consider that it's a mark to show that they're chosen by Him, but it's not one that other people see.
Yeah.
It's
it's a very private and personal thing.
Yeah.
You don't go around flaunting it, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's something that really only the person would know between themselves.
That's right. Yeah, that's real good. Yeah.
Interesting parallel between Old Testament relationship with God and New Testament relationship with God.
Yeah, because I used to ask that question to you. How did they know if they belonged or not? How did they know, for example, in Acts, that Paul was running around with a guy that wasn't circumcised?
Right.
How'd they know?
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, you have to carry a card that says...
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, in the wilderness, as they're traveling
Yeah.
through the wilderness for these 40 years, the first generation that Moses led out of Egypt, they stopped this act of circumcision with their
Children.
Their children.
Yeah.
Why do you think they did that?
I don't know. Some think that it was actually a form of judgment. So when they came to the banks of the river the first time with Moses, they sent the 12 spies in. And when 10 of those 12 spies, Joshua and Caleb being not a part of that, but when they persuaded all of Israel to not go into the land, that God says, then you will wander in the desert until you all die. And some think that this is actually a moment where they chose to no longer be the covenant people of God.
Wow.
And as a part of judgment in that, they weren't allowed or didn't circumcise themselves because of that. In fact, in that passage of Joshua chapter 5, I think it's verse 6, the word he uses for the people of Israel is a different word that is typically used elsewhere in the Bible, especially the Old Testament, that talks about the people of God.
Wow.
They were non-covenantal people at that moment.
Wow.
I guess.
That's interesting. And it makes a lot of sense when you consider how when things get hard for us, how easy it is to stop obeying God. And to stop living in relationship with Him when we are in our own wilderness of sorts.
Sure.
How easy it is to make something else our God as opposed to Him. Wow. It's pretty wild. You mentioned that these people, they had the mark of being chosen by God, but they didn't actually have the faith, which brought them to that place.
Right.
Where they didn't believe that they could actually go in and conquer the land. How might that, having the mark of being someone who's chosen by God, but not having the actions, how might that play out in someone's life today?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joe. I don't know. I try to draw a parallel, like when I was teaching, that God cares more about just the mark. He cares more about what the look is like right? Whether I said we have the bumper sticker, own the merch, the cross necklace or whatever.
Yeah.
He cares more about the faith. I don't know. Maybe it comes back to answering that question. What would you do if you knew you wouldn't fail at something? Like how many times what if that's the litmus test to whether or not we're actually walking in faith or not?
Wow.
Because if God is for us,
who can be against us?
yeah, and if he's establishing our steps, the Bible teaches us, and working for us and all that, if we lack the ability to move forward, are we not then just advertising, promoting, telling everyone and God that we don't have the faith to believe? Like if we're not living that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty powerful and convicting. Let's move on.
Let's move on. Thank you.
One of the things I love about the Bible is that there are passages from the Old Testament that are referenced in the New Testament, 1,500 years apart.
Yeah.
And brought together in that way. And you bring up 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 5,
Yep.
where Paul mentions the children of Israel wandering through the wilderness, and that they ate this manna from heaven, and then there was a rock that followed them, and this rock was actually Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, please do. I don't know much about that at all. I mean, I'm reading that, and I've heard stories of that, but go. I don't know.
It's this weird thing. It's like, in the beginning, they're in the wilderness, and they're asking Moses for water. Where's water going to come from?
We're going to die of thirst. What are we going to do now?
Yeah, and Moses strikes the rock, and water comes out, and they feed them. And then later on, they're thirsty again. Moses, where are we going to get water from? As though God hadn't provided for them again. Yeah. And he turns around and, there's that water rock again. Like, is that Jesus showing up as a rock?
That's so good.
I don't know, but
I've heard a couple teachings about that. I don't know much about that myself in my own personal study. But that's the impression that Paul is giving, that Jesus was the provider, so to speak, of that spiritual drink that followed them around. I mean, was it like Jesus himself? I mean, he wasn't taking on the form of a rock.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus is who Jesus is.
Yeah.
But there's some metaphor there that Jesus, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of how we can look at our life and see in different places God was there. He didn't show up like as a person, he wasn't there in physical form, but wow, God was there with me.
Oh, that's so good.
That.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that sort of thing. You mentioned how the children of Israel were people who looked like the people of God, but they didn't believe like the people of God.
Yeah.
Has there been a time in your own life where you've had to wrestle through that, where you've looked like you are one of the people of God, but you struggled believing like that?
Yeah, I think it's when probably most profoundly became apparent to me when I started working at the church full time. So you know the story, but I was bivocational for the first probably 4 years or better of Renaissance's beginning. So I had a day job where I went to work and we did church in the evenings or weekends when I had free time. And but when I actually quit my job and was working here full time, if there's ever a thing to do that gives the appearance of doing God things, it's being a pastor of a church.
Yeah.
As you would know. And yet, sort of in the dark places of my own heart, I felt more distant from him than I had previous years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I learned early on, it's not just about acting a certain way or looking a certain way. It's really believing in the things that God is telling me about myself and responding in that regard.
Wow, that's so good.
Yeah.
Because it's not always easy to walk that out.
No, and I got to keep saying this because I feel like I'm saying two different things. Our actions matter, totally. I mean, God, when he said you didn't cross the river because of that. Now, the thing is, the actions were motivated by the belief. And so the thing I'm trying to, draw a distinction between is actions without belief don't matter. That's actions without belief do not matter to God.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, because actions matter. We know that.
They do.
But it's what's driving them.
Yeah, belief without actions is dead.
Yeah.
Faith without works is dead.
Go, Apostle Joe.
What do you think is the mark of God's people today?
I thought you were going to say, what do you think the mark of the beast is?
What do you think? Let's talk about that. What do you think is the mark of the beast?
have no idea.
The chip in the right hand.
Yeah, it has something to do with 5G, I'm sure.
Yes, that's
Yes.
exactly what.
Anyways, what was the question again?
What do you think is the mark of God's people today? If it's not circumcision anymore,
Yeah.
what is it now?
Ooh. Well, as you know, we were even praying at the end of the service. The marks that Jesus bore for us are our marks. You know, Isaiah the prophet says there will come someone, and he's going to bear the iniquities of his people, and by his wounds, those marks that have been placed upon him, you know, the chastisement that is upon him is going to bring us peace. So our mark is Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's so good. And that really kind of wraps up your whole message too, how the end you came to this point where you kind of bring up how, in a sense, and you didn't say it this way, but I was hearing it, we've all been rescued out of our own Egypt, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
Quote unquote. And there are moments where we want to go back there, or there are moments where we're still feeling the shame or the reproach of that place where Jesus rescued us from. And isn't it great that he has rolled all of that away?
Oh, yeah.
All of it away. I love the quote from the NLT, "Today I rolled away your shame." Doesn't that sum up the benefit of the gospel in one sentence?
Yes, absolutely. It does for me too. And the NLT also says it rolled away your shame of Egypt or from Egypt. I don't remember. But there's something attached to them that had become part of their lives, their previous life, so to speak, that God was saying, forever, it's gone. Today is the day that I've rolled it away. And when I read that, I thought of the stories in the Gospels where the stone in front of the tomb had been rolled away. And I find it always fascinating. It wasn't like on the third day Jesus disappeared and was gone. And when they rolled the stone away, he walked out. It wasn't, no, the stone was rolled away to show us he was already gone.
Wow.
We don't know when he left. We don't know when, whatever that was.
Yeah.
The stone was rolled away so that we could see that it's gone, that all of the sin issue had been dealt with, that the sacrifice had been successful, that Jesus is among the living now and not the dead, all of that. That's what I find so appealing in all of that. Real quick, so a good friend of ours, Chris Gusky, right?
Yes, shout out to Chris.
Shout out to Chris. What up? He was watching from home, and I just want to read an email he sent to me right after we were done, because you know Chris like I know Chris. He is such a wise and learned individual.
Brilliant.
Anyways, he says, "Hi, Jeff. We chose to watch from home today. One of the things that I love about the Bible is the type-antitype relationships that exist. And today's passage is a classic." He says, "My KJV, footnoted Bible of Joshua 5:9 says this. A play on the word occurs here at Gilgal, rolling away, marks the place where God rolled away the reproach of Egypt. Israel's era of shameful captivity now came officially to an end. The inheritance of Canaan lay ahead. The same verbal root marks the New Testament site of Golgotha, right? The place where mankind's captivity by sin was ended. There man's sins were rolled away and rolled into the person of Jesus Christ so believers might enter God's spiritual inheritance."
Wow.
Now, that's some footnotes that he's writing out or rewriting out of his KJV, but just so smart to see the connection between the two.
Yeah, that's awesome. Every day, because Jesus is alive forever, every day can be the day
Yeah.
he rolls away our shame.
Yeah, I tried to allude to that in the services too, that we don't have to wait for Easter to really celebrate that fact, but we should be motivated by it every week. You know, it should be a big to-do about Jesus' resurrection.
Every day. What would you say if someone, because of their shame, because of the reproach they're carrying from where they've been or what they've done, they can't bring themselves to come to church or open the Bible or even approach God in prayer? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Well, I think firstly is, God sees all of that. So not coming to church, it doesn't matter. It's not as if you open the doors to a church and like Sauron, the great eye, goes, did Frodo just step in?
Yeah.
It's not like that. He's already sees it and he already knows it. I think what I would want people to see is that if they were to walk in, they would either follow or precede someone who's walking in with the exact same feelings. That all of us have some capacity of some of that, some shame or whatever. And if no shame or guilt still, all of us at least have done things in the past that had brought us shame. But through relationship with Jesus and all of that, God has done a washing of us, a cleansing, a purifying us, so we can move forward in relationship with him without those things. So I would just say that the church is not a place for perfect people. It's a place for broken people, and we're all broken, right?
Amen. That's so good.
So I guess question for you, if you could pick a religion that wasn't Christianity, which one would you pick? Like, knowing your personality, you're maybe a works guy. Would you?
It's interesting. We're about to get real, but I started reading the Bible as a teenager because I wanted to find the contradictions so I could have an excuse to convert to Islam. Because
I was going to say Islam. I really thought that would be the one because it is so much about deeds.
And it's very cut and dry.
Yeah.
Do these things and Allah might have mercy on you at the end of the day. Whereas Christianity is a bit ambiguous. It's about a relationship with God that is dependent on the works of another, not on our own. So, great question. Interesting one.
As I was going through those work this week about those other religions, I actually thought, Jeff, which one would you have picked? And I had chosen some of those before I became a Christian. I was very much into the Eastern, religions, and Buddhism and Taoism and stuff like that. And they're just bankrupt to help you, man.
That's right. There's a little glimpse of light in them because there's this desire in us that's maybe reminiscent of the image of God that resides in all of us that says we want to be like him somehow. But there's no way to do it without Jesus, the only one who is man and God in the same way. It's the only way. That's why he's the way. It's not because God is stingy with his mercy. It's because there really is no other way. One last question. What would you do if you knew that you would not fail in doing it?
I know. I thought about that. Oof. Man. Joe.
You've already done a big one, like plant a church. That's a huge one.
Yeah. Okay, what would I do? I would finish faithfully, right? I know a lot of pastors oftentimes burn out, get frustrated, find themselves caught up in a scandal of some sort. And for me, it's like, I just want to finish faithfully. That's what I'll do, because I know that God is not going to allow that for me.
Good.
So. But you have to guard my heart in that regard.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Great message. Thanks, man.
That was hard. That was harder for me.
Yeah.